Welcome to A Woman's Work Podcast, episode number 2.
I'm looking for somebody I can call. Looking for the only one I can get my own. Tell me that it's true.
So today, as you guys can probably tell by the intro, I did want to take a little bit more of a deeper dive into where things began for me. So I know that, I kind of gave you guys some insight into what I wanted this podcast to be about, what journey I'm on in terms of my womanhood, where I am in life right now, and where I hope to be. Which again, we talked about the fact that, one of the biggest lessons I'm learning right now in my womanhood is that there's no longer any more space for me to exist in such a uptight, defensive, fight or flight kind of masculine, gotta speak up, gotta be highly opinionated and come to my own rescue and advocate for myself. There's just no room for that energy. And I know that we talked about that kind of previously before, but I thought that, as you could tell by the title, that it would be good to kind of take a deeper dive into where things started for me. And it's interesting because this conversation this topic kind of came up for me from a conversation actually with my husband. And it started as like a simple check-in. We were on a date night, just like family kind of time we were having. And we just checked in with each other. And sometimes in a marriage, or in a relationship of any kind, that's really necessary. Those check-ins are necessary because sometimes conversations can come about that you just were not expecting. And this was one of those times. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about how that conversation came up, kind of what we talked about. And I really felt like because of that conversation and how the emotion that was evoked from me in that conversation, I felt like that was a good place to start. So let's get right into it. A deeper dive, the roots. Where did my need for feeling like I needed to stand up for myself, I needed to be this strong, independent Black woman, where did that come from? And how does it show up now in my adult life, in my womanhood? How does it show up in my friendships? How does it show up in the workplace? How does it show up in my marriage? And the one that I'm most concerned about is just how does this show up and play a part in my relationship with my husband. So for me, I'm gonna just start from the beginning, right? So we had a conversation and the conversation was centered around how we were doing and what we could do better for one another. And of course, for me, one of the things is always just, my husband would really like for me to do more listening. And instead of always having something to say about things, being able to just say, okay, sometimes, okay, babe, I understand. Being able to do a better job at taking direction, because that is not something that I'm good at. And this is not my first time feeling like that. He is not springing anything up on me that I don't already know. Of course, this is something that I have dealt with actually my entire life. My dad's told me the same thing. And honestly, if I'm keeping it a band with y'all, I just have not conquered in that area. I have not conquered. And that's funny because it's been a problem then and it's still a problem now. So that should show you that things do not go away if you don't address them. And it's been a reoccurring lesson for me And I'm feeling more uncomfortable being that way now that I do have somebody who is determined and gets up every day to take care of my family, our family. And yeah, it's just not serving me anymore. It's uncomfortable to be that way. And so I've prayed and I've prayed and I've prayed and I've prayed. And you know what? I've come to the conclusion that the Most High is really answering my prayers in the form of tests. Really funny topic. I asked him to allow me to be in a space where I can relinquish the control, because feeling the need to be in control all the time is now leading me into a path of fearfulness, worrying, anxiousness. And I have had anxiety and struggled with anxiety since I was 9 years old. And I'm going to be very frank with you guys. I am just simply tired, right? I am worn out and I'm tired of worrying, and I'm tired of being anxious. I'm tired of feeling overwhelmed all the time. And I'm just at a point where I want to allow Quentin, my husband, to step in and help me. And that is so brand new, because before now, I have never felt the need to allow anybody to step in and help me. I always felt like nobody could help. And so that is just really new for me. It is really hard for me to accept and figure out how to allow that. And as that is honestly really ironic to me, because as much as I have hoped and prayed and wished for somebody to come save me, I am realizing that I never made space for anybody to do that. Not even my own dad. And that is just very, very sad, honestly. I think that sometimes we can equate a man, any man, whether it be our father or a man that we're with, not always being right in situations, or not always succeeding when they have ideas and they try to execute in their way, not always succeeding or executing things in the most successful way. I think we equate that to the respect and the responsibilities, the amount of responsibility that we give them. And that has not worked out for me. And I'm learning that God wants us to trust not only the men in our lives, but he wants us to trust him enough to lead those men to keep us safe. And that does not always, refer to physical safetyness. Sometimes it is allowing them to be in emotional safe haven and to bear the responsibilities that bring so much weight, because they are equipped to carry it for us. And so, one thing that I'm learning being in this predicament is that I remember growing up, I couldn't wait to get married because I wanted to create a family dynamic for myself that was unlike anything that I've ever experienced. And God is funny in the way that sometimes He gives you what you need, right? And I find myself being put in situations where I feel feelings that I used to feel when I was a little girl, and it's triggering, and I react the same way every time, right? My first instinct is to come to my own rescue, to catch us before we fall, to correct him before he makes a mistake. And that is just, it's too much. It is just too much. So I wanted to come here, and for episode 2, I wanted to talk about the root cause. I wanted to do a little bit of self-examination, talk about kind of how I came up in some of the situations that I felt like created this sense of needing to feel in control, this hyper perfectionism, and the need to advocate for myself and defend myself. Where did that come from? So I guess let's start with some of the situations that I felt like I was placed in my life that kind of led me to this point. So just to give you guys a quick picture, growing up, my mom was diagnosed with lupus and kidney disease, I think a year after I was born. It was when Jordan, my brother, was born. Background, my mom she was born with one functioning kidney or fully developed kidney, and the other one was underdeveloped. And so when she got with my dad, she had me. And then a year later, a year later, she had, a year later and 1 month, actually, exactly, she had my brother, Jordan, which means that she got pregnant with us, or she got pregnant with him right after she had me. And that was a little bit much on the one kidney that she had fully functioning. And so that brought on a plethora of problems after she had the both of us. It brought on her kidney disease, which what happened was her kidney, the one that was fully developed, ended up failing because there was a lot of pressure on that one kidney. She also had lupus, which also shuts down your organs, or causes problems with your organs, your tendons, your joints, your skin. And at the time, it was just a really understudied, not understood, or misunderstood kind of autoimmune disease. So with that said, we grew up with our mom in and out of the hospital, and it was just a very eye-opening experience. I'll start there. And just imagine, you come home from school and you don't know if your mom's at home. Is she in the hospital? Is she alive? Is she not alive? Imagine having a great day. You're playing with your Barbies, and then all of a sudden something drastic happens and you have to uproot in a panic and go to the hospital. So, and then not to mention, my mom wasn't the only one around us that was suffering or had some sort of disease or issue, health issues. My grandmother, her mom, who raised us, had diabetes since she was like 17. And so she was dealing with that and asthma, and they were our immediate village. It was my Mimi, my mom, my dad, and my uncle, who all contributed raising us. So this is who we were around immediately. And so I had two sick mother figures in my life, right? Who were very unstable, in and out of the hospital, up and down, round and round. Anyways, because of that, it led me to be in a state of panic all of the time, because I am a fixer, right? So I was born, and I personally think this, I was born with the ability to feel things really deeply, and it would urge me to feel like I needed to fix situations. Now, I'm not sure if you guys can see where this is headed, but imagine being a fixer born to a mother that you cannot fix. Eventually, my parents got a divorce. And I think that that was due to a lot of reasons. We'll talk about that later. But growing up, things, would be told to us by our grandma. There was like different types of scare tactics to get us to do right and all that. Parents like to do that. Like, there, people would be like, oh, your mom's, in the hospital because y'all don't know how to, listen, and y'all won't wash the dishes and all this. So growing up, I kind of developed this hyper perfectionism. I needed to be right at everything. I needed to, make the best grades. I needed to excel the most in sports. I needed to be involved in as many things as possible, first of all, to get us out the hood. I'm going to just put it like that. Like, we didn't grow up in the best living situations, but we grew up with some of the most loving and big-hearted people that I have ever been exposed to. And we grew up seeing a lot of situations that people would literally, like adults would literally, they might just faint. Hearts might just stop if they had to be put constantly in situations that we were put in. And I do plan to expand upon what that is. What are some of those situations? I do plan to expand upon those. But right now, for the sake of time, I want to just talk about how being in that situation created this sense of, I need to protect us, I need to save us, I need to help us, and I need to be the one to get us out of the situation, right? And two, because I was being told, like, by my grandma, which I love my Mimi so much, but she just had some funny ways sometimes. But that was her way of getting us to behave. Anyways, I internalized that as, oh, when I mess up, my mom goes to the hospital. My behavior is playing with her life now. So no, like, I can't mess up. And on top of that, I was the oldest in the house. I was the oldest child. So when my dad was no longer in the house with us, I had to be the one to respond to these life-threatening situations. And I saved my grandma's life at 6 years old. I had to be like 5 or 6 when she went into a diabetic coma, and I was staying with her by myself, and I found her on the bathroom floor and had to examine her and call 911 and remember what she told me when I was just 3, of if her eyes ever disappeared, how to save her. So these are, again, situations that young people are not generally exposed to that early on. And seeing that and being that person for my mom and for my Mimi, and having the men in our family, or in that immediate circle, be a phone call away. Don't get it twisted. Anytime anything happened, I could always hurry up and call my dad, and regardless of the fact, he was on the way. My dad is very good at responding in those type of situations, but immediately it had to be me to make those decisions and me to figure out what to do next. And so being in that situation, and when I say that situation, I mean my mom got her toes amputated. Me and Jordan are taking turns cleaning the scars. We're carrying her up the stairs because she has to learn how to re-walk. I'm having to just get on the road and drive to take her to get her medicine, and I don't know how to drive. So being in those situations where if my mom, if we had to call 911, there was certain arms she couldn't have shots and IVs and stuff in, because she had her stuff for dialysis, her graft on that certain arm. I had to know what medicine she couldn't and could take. And again, all of this was very early exposure. So I noticed that I equated her life to the quality of her life to how I performed in mine. That is how a lot of the hyper perfectionism for myself and for everything around me kind of developed. Being in that situation growing up, it definitely put me in position to never, once I got out of that, I never wanted to experience that quality of life ever again. So I'm going to leave that part there. I just feel like it's so much that I would have to go into to really get you guys to understand where this all started for me. But I'll leave it there. Can you imagine that? And that's not to talk about anything personally that I went through as a child, through the divorce, through, wearing my feelings on my sleeves, bullying in school, dealing with, my brother, how he's taken things, how he's taken all of this, how he processes life, the bullying he's going through in school. That is not to even speak on any of those things. Let's just start with how I came into the world, And so this is a really big topic, and I really feel like it's something that I can't even begin to create the appropriate picture for people on the outside. So imagine me trying to communicate this to my husband, right? And one day I found myself trying my best to paint this picture, and the Most High told me to stop. Can you imagine God pretty much telling you, stop explaining why you're doing this and focus on what you're being asked and how you're gonna stop? Because where you came from has nothing to do with how you're gonna move forward. And that really, really piqued my interest because honestly, you guys, I spend a lot of time resonating and living in my past because I don't want to forget where I came from. I don't want to forget, my mom. I don't want to forget everything that made me the woman that I am. And I genuinely feel like a lot of women say that they want to be married for the glitz, the glam, the wedding, the being able to say, I got a ring, my husband this, my husband that. All that is cute. But when you have a marriage that is ordained by God, it's less about that, less about the romance, and more about the dominion that God ordained for your bloodlines. Marriage is a mirror, right? He uses you both to magnify the things that you have struggled with in your life so that you can overcome it. And one thing in recent that I've been using to kind of compare to my journey in marriage has been, if you guys have seen Them and watched Them is a really good depiction and kind of like metaphor for what it looks like for people in your bloodline that came before you to ignore traumas and things that they don't deal with and how it's passed down. And sometimes as you're living things out, you end up finding clues that lead you back. So I'm learning that I have to turn around and I have to face these things and fix these things because it keeps being put on my path so that the girls after me, they don't have to be this strong. And I really genuinely don't believe that a lot of women understand, as cute as this stuff is, we need to fix a lot of stuff, including myself. And as perfect as I have tried to be, as much as I have tried to leave the past in the past, who I am today is a result of that. And so for some reason, I have to give my opinion when things don't look right, when things don't feel comfortable for me, when he goes about something in a way that I wouldn't have done it, I have to say something. Even down to the little stuff, like if something is out of place, I have to be like, why did you leave this here? And I know that is probably so freaking annoying. And I don't want to be like that. So imagine being that little girl. Imagine being that little girl. And I am sure I'm not the only one. This is something that I am learning too, that makes me feel so much better about my experiences, is that God gives us these experiences because we're going to need them later on. We need our experiences earlier on. He's speaking to me. We need our earlier on traumatic experiences to make us who we are, because we got to be broken before we can build ourselves. And I am learning that I am not the only one who knows how it feels to be broken. And whenever you feel like you're alone on that hill, you leave too much room to feel like the victim. Nobody understands me. Nobody knows how this feels to carry this. And that is the exact point. We're not supposed to carry We're not supposed to carry these things. We're not supposed to let our circumstances and things that we go through make us who we are. Does that make sense? Like, they make us who we are, but they don't define where you can go. I think that's more so what I was trying to say. They make us who we are, but what you've been through should not define the growth that needs to take place in between then and the end, right? So back on topic, I just felt like I always had to be strong. And I felt like, especially when my mom passed away, I had an extreme breaking at that point. I was just like, God, what did I do wrong? What did I do wrong? What did I do wrong to make my mom lose her life? I was in the National Honor Society. I finished all my high school courses my freaking sophomore year of high school. I was on varsity volleyball and basketball my freshman year. I was cheerleading captain in middle school in my freshman year until I decided to just do volleyball and basketball. I was in theater. I medaled at shows. I placed. I showed up everywhere. I was in church every Sunday. I sung in the choir every Sunday. I showed up. What did I do? And I felt like I was being punished. And so for the longest time, I had so much control, right? I had so much control. I was like, oh, I'm at the top of my game. I'm doing all these things right. My mom is alive. She's getting to watch us graduate. And boom, I get to college, and now I'm being exposed to like other people's upbringings and way of life completely different than anything I've ever experienced in my life. And now, as I'm adjusting to that, boom, everything that I worked to build, everything that I worked to maintain was literally, it was just stripped away from me. And I felt like I did something. I had to have done something to deserve that. And that is where the chip on my shoulder began. And it's not until I get into marriage with my husband. Mind you, I've been with him since I was in college, on and off, whatever. But we get into marriage, and it's not until now that I realize things don't happen to you. Every Mother's Day, and I don't celebrate these things, but every Mother's Day, I watch people post their moms, and then I watch so many people who don't have their moms. And as alone as I want to feel, and as hurt and crushed as I want to feel, I have realized I am not the only one. Whatever your story is, whatever pain and experience you have gone through and suffered, and traumas you have experienced and suffered through, I can guarantee you, you are not the only one. And this is not a result of God's punishment on us. This is a result of other people's decisions mixed with our decisions, and God allowing that to happen. And you can either make it for the betterment of you, or it could be your demise and those that come after you, because you haven't done enough digging. So here I am to say, girl, relax. Right? Girl, slow down. It is okay. You are okay. You don't have to be afraid. And I be trying so hard to hold back my tears and not cry, because it's weird. I'm on camera. I'm still getting used to this, guys. But like, you don't have to be afraid, because there is a living God. And I don't care if you don't have a husband. And I know this, that I do speak to that a lot. And I know that there are going to be girls who tune in, or guys that tune in to watch these, that you don't have anybody. But God is not a God of mistakes. There is somebody around who is there for you, whether it's spiritually or in the flesh. And you guys, you cannot be afraid to turn around. Stop running. Dig deep. Why are you like this? Because it's keeping us from the quality of life that we deserve. And can you imagine that all of this is just a bunch of trial and error, because we live in a world that is ran by Satan himself? God did not intend all of this chaos for us. And so one of the biggest things that I've been asking for is just peace. I just want to relinquish the control. I want to give it to God. I want to allow my husband to feel like a man. I don't want to be doing all that. I want to calm down. When I got into the truth, and it's a topic for another day, but when I got into the truth and I really started reading the Bible and digging deep into what God was instructing me to do. And trust me, after my mom died, I did a lot of running from God. I can't possibly know who you are. I can't possibly be serving the God that I sung to every Sunday. That's not right. It's not right. Because according to the things I was told, you promised if I did the right things that I would get what I deserve. And my mom passing away like that, I did not deserve that. She did not deserve that. I don't know what kind of God you are. I ran. I tried to dig into other religions. I looked at other gods. I turned my back until I realized that I was running from the same God that literally sustained her life. The root of my need to feel in control, my need to be perfect, my need to just have and get myself a better quality of life stems from the fear of losing. Whether it's losing my mom, whether it's losing everything I worked hard for, whether it's losing other people that I loved, whether it's losing myself, whether it's losing a fight, whether it's losing a job, it doesn't matter. I don't want to lose. Because I watched too many people struggle. I stayed down. And I don't want that. But here's the thing. We were not promised to live according to what we wanted. And no matter what my circumstances look like, I still need to obey and show up as the woman that God ordained me to be. I still need to show up like that. And I've done enough running, right? I ran into the right thing. And it was something very small. I ran into the right thing when I started digging into my Bible. And I found out who God really is and what we were really promised. And now I said, oh, it's not you. It's me. And I'm showing up in my marriage as what was required of me then. Those are not my current circumstances. So how I carry myself is not fitting for where I am. So how am I going to change? When am I going to change? My husband told me something very important here recently. He said, Desiree, I really feel like sometimes your past is more real to you than the present. Can you imagine your husband or whoever? Can you imagine you getting up every day, working so hard to be different, to have different circumstances, and then not changing who you are to fit and attract what you want? God told me, if you want the quality of life that I set out for you to have, then you need to get out of the driver's seat and let me in. And my friends, that has been by far the hardest thing that I have ever had to do, and that I am still trying to figure out how to do. How do I have enough faith to get out of the driver's seat, to let the Most High in, and to not only get out the driver's seat, to get in the back seat? Because in the back seat, I have no control. You know, if I'm in the passenger seat, I can at least, the car starts spinning out of control, I can grab it. But in the back seat, if we crash and burn, baby, we just burn. We gone. And that is so terrifying. And so that brings me back to some of the root. You know, I guess that this is not going to really be exploring all of where things started. This is the tip of the iceberg. But I do want other young individuals to understand that a lot of y'all saying y'all wifey, a lot of y'all saying y'all are husbands, that y'all want marriage, and a lot of y'all are definitely not acting like it, but also don't understand exactly what all goes into that. And so I did want to speak about marriage, my relationship with God, how things dwindled and picked back up. And I guess this is just going to have to be a part 1, because there's just no way that I'm going to fit this entire conversation into one video. So I hope this blesses somebody today. Guys, this is what I have to give today. I don't even know how else to get into this conversation without it being 3 hours. So today, I want to just leave you guys with get out of the driver's seat. Okay? Whatever you guys are going through, go back. Sometimes you need to backtrack a little bit to figure out how you're going to move forward. You need to take a look at where things started for you. And God is so amazing in how he works. It was just a simple conversation that evoked me. I already do this a lot. I do a lot of reflecting, but that evoked me to really look at, dang, why is this just not easy? Why can't I just be like, okay, babe, Like, why I gotta, why do I feel so smart? Why do I feel like I know everything? Why do I feel like there's just one way to do stuff? Like, that is just not realistic. It is not realistic to be at the standards that I've held myself to. And I wonder why I'm so anxious. I wonder why I'm always so stressed out and I'm always so tired and crashing at the end of the night. And it's because I am carrying a cross that Christ already bared for me. And maybe if you are struggling too, then maybe you are as well. But gentle reminder to you and to myself, we are not Christ, as we can see. I mean, it's people going to get medicine for the anxiousness, but what about the digging? What about the digging? So I guess we can say this is part 1 of root cause. Let's call this series. We're going to do a series on the root cause. Let's call this series root cause. This is part 1 of root cause. I have struggled to, no, I feel like this is a perfect opportunity. Y'all ready? My name is Desiree Bass, and I have struggled to be a feminine woman. I have shown up in my life, throughout my life, very masculine, and I am ready to stop. Please send help. Please send help. Rely on God. He'll do it for you guys. All right, that'll conclude today's episode of A Woman's Work. I do hope that you guys enjoyed part 2, or episode 2. And I look forward to seeing you on episode 3. Much love. I love you guys a million. See you next time. You okay, Mom?